So it's probably a bit of an understatement to say that 2020 has been a tough year. Boy, the only good thing I can say about it is that we're into October now, and a couple more months and we're through this one, I think. I don't think there's any guarantee that 2021 is going to be any better, but at least we'll get this one out of the way. And to top it all off, we've got Christmas coming up. So some of us are going to be looking for some stopgap measures, if you will, to handle the Christmas present situation that we got coming up. And this turns out to be a video I've been wanting to do for a long time. I've had a website called woodworkinggifts.com for forever, but I haven't really done much with it. And hopefully this is the year I can actually do some things with it other than just having a website that I sell a couple things on. So in terms of woodworking gifts, I think picture frames are probably what I would call one of the low-hanging fruit. They aren't particularly hard to make. There's really some pretty easy ways to make them. You can do a whole lot of them, so they kind of lend themselves to mass production, and they're fairly quick to make. You know, speaking for all the old geezers out there, I'll tell you, there's not much I appreciate more than a picture frame that has a picture of one of my grandkids in it, or more. But anyway, that's why I consider it to be the low-lying fruit of woodworking gifts. Pretty quick and easy to do. You can do a lot of them all at one time. And you know, it kind of helps you fulfill your gift obligations pretty easily. I also have some other stuff that's a lot more involved at my Woodworking Gifts website, and these are things that pretty much just came out of my head. So they're not stuff you can buy anywhere else. They're just kind of ideas that I've had over the years and I've developed for my own purposes. And because I'm an average guy, I kind of figure that other people have similar needs. So I know they'd make great gifts as well. Now, I want to give you the story behind this particular frame here. This is a friend of mine who we lost about a year and a half ago, named Doc Case. And Doc lived over in the White Mountains in Nutrioso. Obviously he was a bass player, which is how I came to know him. I used to play in a band with him and our mutual buddy Brad Jensen. Brad Jensen, by the way, is somebody you've seen in my video camper videos, if you happen to watch any of those. He's done a couple things in my video camper videos for me. I think the most recent one was on pit barbecuing or what have you. But back to this, Doc, you know, just was, man, what a great guy. He was one of those people you know, it's just hard to describe how you feel about him. He was really just I don't think he had an enemy in the world. Well, you know what? He left his enemies in South Vietnam. That's how he came to have that patch on his eye, and he also had shrapnel on his back. But still, it didn't dissuade him from being just really a cool guy. And as it turns out, Brad, myself, and then Bruce Andre, who's another friend of Doc's and mine and Brad's, turns out to be a cowboy artist, and he's a real good one. And when Doc passed away, Bruce did a big painting of this, and then which, by the way, they auctioned that off at his memorial, and they made quite a few bucks on it and gave it to, I think, Veterans of Foreign Wars or one of those organizations. I don't remember which it was, but Bruce had also made some prints. which of course is what that is. And he'd given at least a couple of them to Brad, and Brad, the last time I was over in Nutrioso, going down and doing a little picking on the Blue River, Brad gave me that print, and I said, "Mom, I'm going to make a picture frame for that. You want me to make you one too?" And he said, "Oh, sure, as long as you're doing it, you might as well make me one too." So I did. And when I finished it, I mailed it off to him. But I thought, this would really be a good opportunity to kind of kick off my Woodworking Gifts website and show you how to do something that's not that hard to do, and has some great sentimental value to it. Normally I keep this in my house hanging on the wall. And this frame allows you to very easily go back and forth from having something that sits up to having something that hangs on the wall. And in fact, this is a smaller version that I've made to kind of demonstrate that. I've had this one around for quite a while. This one has a bead that I've routed on it. You can get pretty fancy with picture frames. I mean, I think you know that. And by the way, all real woodworkers, I mean, they know how to make picture frames because they're pretty simple to do. But as it turns out, there are a lot of people out there who, maybe they're just familiar with how to do such things. They're not quite sure what the procedures might be, but they could probably fight their way through it, but I want to make it a little easier for those kind of folks. What I'm finding nowadays is you have a lot of people, when I was a kid, I took woodworking in high school. And, they showed you how to use all the various equipment, and it was pretty good stuff. Well, nowadays, education can't afford those kind of classes. Table saws are expensive. Bandsaws are expensive. It's just not something that tends to be taught nowadays, other than in just maybe an introductory way. But there's a lot of good stuff on the internet. If you happen to be a person who maybe has kind of always wanted to do it, and maybe you inherited some tools from somebody who passed away, this might be a good way to break into it, I guess is what I would say. But anyway, this particular picture frame, I make them in such a way, a little bit different way. I reinforce my miter joints in a different way because I don't have a biscuit joiner. Biscuits are a real cool way to do it if you've got a biscuit joiner. I'm not a guy who goes out and buys something new every time I need it. I will try to figure out a way around it, and that's what I've done with these joints. What I do is I drill a bind hole, doesn't go all the way through the other side, and I mount a dowel in there, glue a dowel in there, and that really increases the surface area of that joint. So I'll show you how I do that, and another thing I do to them as well. And then you'll notice it has these 4 holes, and that means that you could hang it this way, this way, this way, or this way on the wall. If you do a good job of drilling that hole in the center, then you never have to really center your frame. And the other thing is that because it's drilled at an angle, it will pull the frame into the wall, and all you need is one nail to mount it. Now I know a lot of the store-bought frames, they put staples in here to try to hold the frame, the glass, the frame, the back in there. And if you have a mat, there'll be a mat in there too. In this particular case, I put some screws in it so that you could stick all that stuff in there and then just screw it in. And then you can either hang it on the wall, or if you prefer, you can, stand it up. It's a pretty simple proposition. You could kick out a whole bunch of these things at one time if you wanted to. The other thing, now the wood that I've used here is aromatic cedar, and I'll explain that to you when I get to it. I'll tell you honestly, you could build a picture frame from a pallet. If you took the pallet apart, most pallets are made of oak. or a lot of them are anyway. And if you have a jointer, then you can joint that oak down to whatever thickness you want. It'll really look great. So, you know, it's one of those things that you can do pretty inexpensive. Takes some of your time, but at least it'll get you going in the whole notion of thinking in terms of doing your own woodworking gifts. Before I leave picture frames, I will also tell you that there's, you know, more than one way to do almost everything in this world. And you consider that you go to work a certain way every day, and you probably take the same route, unless they tell you on the radio there's been an accident on that particular freeway maybe that you use, and so you take an alternate route. And that's why it's good to know alternate ways of doing things. They each have their own little advantages and disadvantages. What I like about a miter is that it hides all the end grain. There's no end grain that shows associated with a miter joint. And that to me is a big benefit. This is a half lap frame. And by the way, I knew how to do half lap joints. I mean, I've known how to do that forever. They're very easy to make. But there was this guy, George Bondriska, I think is his name, and he did this video called Woodworking 101 for the Great Courses, which is a place where I get various educational courses. I like to learn stuff I don't already know. And he's the one that suggested using a half lap as a joint on a picture frame. Now, I knew how to make a half lap already, but I never thought about using it as a picture frame. So this is kind of, you know, his knowledge generalized over to me, and now I have a way of doing it, picture frame, a different way. Now, I don't make picture frames that way, but I use this half lap in other areas because he put it in my mind. And what I'll tell you about that is he's a very good teacher, and his Woodworking 101 course starts off with the table saw. So, you know, if you're one of those guys who's just kind of trying to get into it, it's a really good way to go. It's a pretty inexpensive course. And like I say, he's a really good teacher. So, you know, that's something to think about. Anyway, woodworkinggifts.com, currently I have basically 4 books for sale. Although this book, which happens to be this one, is really the other 3 book. It has the other 3 plan sets in it. This particular plan set is the one where I show you how to do not only picture frames, but a couple other projects as well. I have one called a hobby box, which is pretty cool. It's probably going to be my next video on this channel. And then how to make jewelry boxes and a treasure chest. This is stuff I made for my grandkids when they were younger. And anyway, that's kind of where I want to go with this video. I want to show you everything you need to know to build a frame similar to this.